This may really irritate some of you, but the leaders are going to love this. You guys in? Okay. Your product is not really your product. Your weight loss product, your vitamin product, your juice product, your legal service, whatever your product is that your company manufactures, whatever the service is, that's not your product. Your product, who wants to know what your real product is? Who's out there? Can you guys make some noise and give me some love? Here at the No Excuses event. Oh yeah, my boys upstairs. How about front row? What do you guys say? Awesome. Wow, this is really cool. Before I get started, I just want to say, if you had bet on me about 17 years ago to be on stage right now, against me, should I say, you'd have lost your shirt. And I'm just here to tell you that anything is possible if you believe. Anything. Do you guys believe? You got to believe to be up here, I'm telling you. And I just want to say thank you to our great friends, Ray and Fernie, for putting this event together. Guys, give it up for these awesome leaders. Kind of reminds me of a story, actually, about a young boy and his dad are working in the family business. And one day it gets kind of busy, and father looks up and sees a huge line of people forming at the cash register. And as much as that excited him, he got a little concerned. So he went over to the register to see what was going on, and he found his son counting all the money. And he was looking under the drawer for the 50s and the 100s, and he's shelling all of his singles and his 5s and his 10s and his 20s, and he's consumed with the money while the line of customers at the cash register grew. And the father runs over and says, "Son, what are you doing? There's all these people waiting for your, to pay for their meal." And he said, "Oh, Dad, I just got to make sure I have all the money here." And his dad looked him in the eye and he said, "Son, you take care of all these people, this part takes care of itself." And that is the secret to getting up on stage, is that you have to give more of yourself than you can ever even imagine, because it's about servant leadership. And I'm not even talking about my presentation right now. This is not about my coaching series or my philosophies or the way I build my business. This is just me sharing with you after having hundreds of conversations out at my table, in the hallways, in the casinos, in the elevators. In the last 48 hours, we've had so many conversations, and I've had probably a couple dozen questions that circulate around, what is the secret? What do you do? How do I become successful? How many of you guys are here to get that answer right now? You guys, I should see all your hands, right? Everybody, why do we come to these events? Right? To learn, right? We come here to learn. We come here to feel the energy. We come here to get more belief. And so the key, again, is you take care of the people around you, and the money part will take care of itself. It's that simple. But see, you have to learn how to take care of the people around you. You can't just start taking care of them and nurturing them. You have to learn what's in their best interest, and you have to give them exactly what they require to become successful. So important to know exactly why you're here, because the fact that you're here to make a lot of money is great, but money is just dirty paper with dead presidents on it. And until you have a clear understanding of exactly why you're here and what it is that you're going to wake up for every single day, then none of the information that you're learning right now and have learned for the last 2 days at this amazing event really even matters. Now, I'm going to share a little bit about a conversation I had just a couple hours ago out at my table. Had a young lady walk up and she started asking me what my company was and what do I do for a living. She wanted to know what my full-time profession was. And I kind of felt like I was being prospected. Anybody get prospected this weekend? Right? Everybody's kind of chuckling. We all got prospected this weekend. Even the speakers get prospected. I can't tell you how many business cards some of you dropped at my table. And I don't quite know why, because I want to tell you something. And this may really irritate some of you, but the leaders are going to love this. You guys in? Okay. Your product is not really your product. Your weight loss product, your vitamin product, your juice product, your legal service, whatever your product is that your company manufactures, whatever the service is, that's not your product. Your product, who wants to know what your real product is? No. Your product is people. That's right. And when you learn more about people than you learn about your product, then you know about the real product that you're marketing. Who wants to hear that again? Okay. Your product is not your product. Your product is people. And when you learn more about people than you learn about your product, then you learn more about the real product that you're marketing. Who's all chips in on this? Okay, does that make sense? Because until you understand more about people and what motivates people and what triggers people financially, emotionally, psychologically, sometimes physically to take action, then the ingredients, whether your product is the first of its kind and what they call a category creator, none of it actually even matters. None of it. So, not knowing this, about 18 years ago, before I got into the networking industry, I was a personal trainer. I had a background. I worked for a large fitness chain on the East Coast. You probably have heard it before. It's called Bally's. They have a small casino up the street, right? And I was working in this gym, and I was working sometimes, 10, 12, even 15 hours a day. And I was going into the gym at 6 a.m., making sure I was there when my clients arrived, and I would sometimes have appointments all the way through till 10 or 11 at night. There were nights where I actually slept in the gym because I had to be there at 6 a.m., but by the time I got myself home and back up again at 5 o'clock in the morning, it wasn't worth the trip. It wasn't worth the drive. So I slept in the gym. I slept on a cot in the personal training office, and I wore my sweatpants and woke up in the morning and put on my gym shorts. And I'll tell you, it wasn't a pretty life. I was working 15, 16-hour days, making about $24,000 a year is all, pulling in about $500 a month, or $500 a week, $2,000 a month. I had just graduated college. I had this really expensive receipt. It's called a diploma, hung on my wall. And I was like, well, this is great. I got a diploma, but I'm making less money than, my friends that are, doing things probably shouldn't have been doing outside of college. But I was working, sometimes 6 days a week, and it was very, very challenging. And one day I woke up and I thought to myself, you know what? I'm better than this. I am better than this. I loved what I did, but I had no free time, and I had no extra money to enjoy it. How many of you guys feel that same way right now? Not enough free time, not enough money to enjoy it. Well, what happened for me was I went into work one day, and if you haven't noticed, I don't shave my goatee. I actually keep a goatee, and back then it was kind of the fad. It was like the early Pearl Jam and Nirvana, the alternative music days were kind of starting to catch up, and it was a little grungy. And one day I went into work and I hadn't shaved, and I got sent home because I had a goatee. I had a little extra facial hair, and my manager, he wore a mustache. And so I thought, well, that doesn't make sense. I'm getting sent home for having facial hair, but yet you're able to stay here with the same thing, the same problem. And that was it. I took my keys out, my training keys, and I said, this is your 2-second or 2-minute notice. And I literally threw my keys down, I packed my locker, and I never worked another day in corporate America again. And for me, what happened was I moved out to San Diego, California. I packed up my Jeep, Yeah, I moved out to San Diego. I loved living out there. And, you know, when I first got out there, I had to get my familiar surroundings. I had to get my feet planted in a new location. And so I did what was most comfortable and familiar. And I went to a local gym, and I applied for a job. And I wound up working at a local health club. And I was okay with that because I had picked up and moved cross country, and that was kind of like my first my first bearing. And I got my bearings, I figured out where I was and what I wanted to do. And I realized after doing the same thing that I was doing in college that I had to make some changes. So what I did was I started a small business. I actually did a little research. I went to the local library and I went into some of these Rolo files or whatever they're called. And I started looking up some names and phone numbers of people that could really give me a little bit of idea and a little bit of assistance and direction. I wanted to start my own private label supplement company. How many of you have had a great idea before? Okay, I should see all hands go up, right? How many of you actually acted on that idea? Okay, I think what happens is so many of us have these great ideas, but we let them sit far too long, and we miss out on the greatest opportunity. It's called speed of implementation. And the reason that you get to see all these great speakers up here this weekend and all these success stories and all these people who have actually achieved some pretty dynamic results, wouldn't you agree? It's because they acted on what's called speed of implementation. And that is a huge commonality amongst top producers in our business. And it's not just about having a new idea and creating a product or a new service. It's about taking action in general. It's called speed of implementation, and it's something that you should definitely write down in your notes because it's something that every top producer and top earner can say that they have, okay? So knowing this at that time, I started a small business. I had no idea what I was doing. All I knew is that I was in business. I had my own company. I had my own product. I invested thousands of dollars that I didn't even have. It was called a credit card. I had one credit card back then. It was a Discover card, okay? And I can tell you this. A lot of people said I had no business being in business, and they were probably right because at that time, the way I operated was that I followed the tip of my nose. I didn't have a business plan. I didn't have any idea what my budget was. I didn't have any idea really of anything other than the fact that I knew I wanted to be successful. And I really didn't care what it took. I did not care. And I was willing to do whatever it took for however long it took to achieve my freedom. That's all I cared about. I remember one day, my dad will laugh when he watches this video. My dad kind of came out to San Diego my very first few months out there because I was renting a bedroom and living in this little room, $400 a month. And I was maxing out my credit card and barely making any money at the gym, certainly not enough to afford the lavish lifestyle that I wanted. My dad came out, said he was coming out on a vacation, but I think he was coming out to check up on me. And I'll never forget, it was like Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, and the year was 1995. And I was 24 years old. And I remember when my dad came out and he said, "Son, what are you going to do? You have no money. You just quit your job." I just quit my job at the gym. He said, "You have no money. You have no job. You're running out of room on your credit card." And I said, "You know what, Dad? I don't care. I may not have money. I might not have a job. I don't even have any credit, but I have a dream." That's all I needed. It's all I needed. It was a dream. I just had to have a vision of what I wanted, and I did. How many of you are crystal clear in what you want out of your business? How many of you could literally write down, if I gave you about a minute, to write down your perfect life? How many of you have done this before or can see this in your mind's eye? I want to share a quick story with you. I share this with my team. This is kind of private, so don't share this with too many people. I do these webinars for my team. They're called New Member Business Plan webinars. And I get my new members, brand new in the business, onto a webinar for about 90 minutes. Now, some of you that are on my team know that's not 100% true. We go over sometimes by about 30 minutes because I pour everything into your success. I put it all on the line Not for me. I don't need the money anymore. I do it for you. And I share a little module in this new business plan webinar, this new member business plan webinar, about a young lady by the name of Carrie Strug. Anybody know who Carrie Strug is? Gymnast, yeah. Anybody recall when she was a gymnast? This guy's good. 1996, U.S. Women's Gymnastics. She was a U.S. Olympian for the women's gymnastics team. And the team was actually competing in the team competition. And little Carrie Strug, probably, no more than 90 pounds, dripping wet, she gets up for her chance on the vault. Okay, the vault is a piece of equipment where the girls run full speed. It's the only exercise where they actually run full speed at a non-moving object. It's pretty amazing what they did, these girls. They actually jump onto it. They hit the springboard with their hands, and then they vault themselves up onto this big apparatus, and then they flip and they twist and they turn and they land. Well, little Carrie Strug twisted her ankle. If you remember this, I remember like it was yesterday because I tell the story several times per week, but she landed and she twisted her ankle, she rolled it, and it tore up all of her ligaments and tendons, and all the cartilage in there got destroyed. In that 1 second, her Olympic dream landed on her rear end. Well, sure enough, they get a second opportunity. They got a second chance to go out and fight for their dream. Well, little Carrie Strug, with her bad ankle, gets back up onto the runway, and in pain, like you've never seen a girl's face before, runs as fast as she can, hits the springboard, hits the vault, goes up and flips and twists and turns, and lands on one leg. How many of you remember this? It was absolutely incredible. And when she was interviewed after that event, and after the U.S. won the gold medal team competition, right? They beat one of the satellite countries. She was interviewed after that event, and they said, "Carrie, how did you do it?" She said, "You know how I did it?" She said, "I saw myself land that routine 1,000 times. And you know what? It's what she's telling us that we need to take away from this. You have to be able to see yourself being the leader that other people want to follow. If you can't see yourself becoming the leader that other people want to follow, then it doesn't matter what you learn here this weekend. It doesn't matter what you study. It doesn't matter how many hours you sit on a webinar or sit in front of your computer, organize your desk." Was that not a great video that that Andrew Cash showed yesterday? Right? I mean, guys, if you don't know why you're here and you can't see yourself achieving your goals, then none of this matters. None of it. So I'm now in San Diego. I find myself in, a ton of business that I don't even realize, that I'm, even capable of. I have no idea what I'm really doing, if you really want to know the truth. I was just following the tip of my nose, as I mentioned, and I had credit cards piling up. Now, I did get some more credit cards. I moved from this one bedroom where I was paying $400. I moved into a one-bedroom apartment. I was borrowing a car because I bought a car when I got out there and I totaled it. So I was borrowing a car mostly on my bike. My bills were threatened to be shut off probably, a couple dozen times. I did keep flashlights and a battery in my kitchen drawers just in case I got home and my electric bill was shut off. And if you looked at me on paper, I pretty much had nothing. My parents used to call me and say, "When are you coming back home to New York?" That's where I'm from originally. Any New Yorkers in the house? My parents used to ask me, "When are you coming back home? When are you coming home? Can you stay home when you visit next time?" And that kind of thing. And, I really had nothing. I mean, I used to sit in my one-bedroom apartment, and I would read books because I couldn't afford to go out. And it got really bad at one point. I had about $17 in the bank. Now, when I look at it from the perspective of what goes on in the real world, I have to say, if you're born in a first world country like the United States or Canada or different parts of the world where there's some, absolutely incredibly prosperous and abundant countries, if you're born in a first world country, you're actually born quite wealthy. I just want to throw that out there real quickly. That's my disclosure or my disclaimer. So I really wasn't doing too poorly, considering that I had fresh, clean drinking water, I had food, I had shelter. But when you're, 24, 25, 26 years old and you have $17 in the bank And it got really bad one day. I actually had a pretty big epiphany. I found myself digging through the sofa looking for change, like a dime or a quarter, because I was looking to go get myself something from the 99-cent menu at Taco Bell. That's where I was not too many years ago. And if you looked at me and you actually looked at my life, you would have seen that I really didn't have much. But see, I had the one thing that most people didn't have, and that was this: the heart and the desire to succeed. Raise your hand if you have those things. Okay, keep them up for a second, because I want you to get a feel for what it's like to actually understand that by your hand being up right now, you are raising your hand, and what that tells me is that you know that you're going to make it. You see, there's nothing stronger than the heart of a volunteer. And when you volunteer the way you are right now, I know, and I know that you can do this business. How many of you can do this business? How many of you are going to reach your goals and live the dream? Can I hear by show of hands? Because I want to hear a little bit of energy coming for you guys. Well, living in San Diego, I got a chance to work with a very, very successful lady. Her name was Sherry. Sherry had an office in San Diego, and I used to go into the office every single day, and I would just go watch Sherry and her partner Buck, and I would pay close attention to everything that they were doing to become successful. Now, I was in $60,000 worth of debt, don't forget, and Sherry was making $250,000 per month. Not a bad income, right? She was very wealthy, very successful, very charming and charismatic, beautiful lady. And one day, I woke up and I got dressed and I went into the office and I was so excited, and I said to Sherry, I got to talk to you about something. I have this awesome idea. And she looked at me and she smiled with these beautiful pearly whites and she said, Aaron, your ideas make you broke. My ideas make me rich. Whose ideas should we listen to? And Sherry turned and walked away. And it was pretty amazing because she was right. I mean, it was probably one of the most humbling moments of my entire life. I was so humbled. I was actually so humbled that I thought about this, and I'm like, man, you know what? She is so right. All of what I've been thinking and doing, as long as I've been doing this, networking and started my own business and thinking I knew it all, it really didn't make me much money at that point. So I talked to Sherry. I went into her office and I said, Sherry, you know, you really shocked me right then and there. I mean, I got to be honest. I mean, you're still going to want to work with me, right? And she said, Aaron, you have so much to offer people. She said, I want you to go over to the mirror. Go right now. She said, go stare in the mirror for a few seconds. She said, you're going to be looking at both the problem and the solution. And I went over to the mirror, and I actually looked in the mirror, and I got it. I actually stared in the mirror so long I cried. Because I realized that she was right. How many of you get that? How powerful that is to know that you have the power. Everything you require is already inside you. You heard Jay Kubisek's presentation, right? Right? Everything you require to be successful is already inside you. All these questions, all these excuses, all these reasons, all these things that you come up. I tell my people, look, in the beginning, when you first get started, when we ask you for your numbers, you know, what kind of, what are the things you bring to the table? How much time you're willing to devote each week? What you think your people skills are on a scale from 1 to 10? What you think your computer skills are, your marketing skills, right? How much available capital you've set aside to start your business, your monthly budget. When I ask you for your numbers, nobody wants to hear your story. How many of you have been telling the story of why you're not succeeding far too many times? Okay, I see a lot of hands and nods and all sorts of aha moments. I see light bulbs going off. See, how many of you had a little bit of a light bulb moment here so far? Guys, see some hands? Light bulb moment? Wow, you guys are wow, there's a lot of people here. See that little light bulb above your head, that little idea, that little aha moment? See how bright it can get in the brilliance of yourself? Here's the best thing about that little light bulb. You're the only one who can shut it off. If that light bulb gets brighter, it's because of you. If that light bulb gets dimmer, it's because of you. And so I want you to understand that. You are fully responsible for everything in your life. And I sat down and I actually diagrammed what makes up a person's life. And I'm going to share this with you. I'm going to go really quick, so pay close attention. There's you. There's your spouse or significant other. There's, maybe your kids, your grandkids. You got siblings. You got your parents. You got extended family, relatives, right? You got all sorts of friends and acquaintances and people you know in business, local business, long-distance business, your business partners, maybe some people that you know by face but not by name. Okay, these are your relationships in life. Then you've got your financial life. You've got your job. You've got your business. You've got an income coming in. If you don't, you're here to learn why. You've got your bank account, your checking account, your savings account. You've got things like portfolios and investments, and you've got your whole financial life. Then you've got your material things, your home, your car, your computer, your cell phone. Who doesn't have a cell phone? Right? Isn't that funny? There's like 5 billion cell phones on this planet. Think there's a market for business out there? Everybody's looking at their cell phones all day, connecting through this, cyberspace, right? You got all this stuff in your life, your clothes and your books and your junk. Look around when you go home tonight, tomorrow, Monday, Tuesday, whenever. Look at all the stuff you have in your life. How much of it really made a difference? And of course, we have sentimental things, but most of what we have is just consumeristic junk. And then you've got your health, and you've got your fitness, and you've got hobbies, and you've got all these things that make up your life. And after 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years, some of you, after all of your life that you've been living, all this information coming in over the last decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, however long you've been alive, all this information that's put into your mind, your life is a direct result of what you've been trained to think. True or true? Right? So I want you to look at your life and say, where did I go wrong? If everything I've been doing isn't working, I'm here to tell you that doing more of it is not going to make it any better, okay? And as you'll tell, I am not a professional speaker or presenter. The only reason I'm up here with you guys today is because I'm a producer. So my PowerPoint may be off. I may not be perfect on my timing, but I'm here to tell you this, okay? It doesn't take a Rockefeller to help a fella. It's one of my favorite quotes. I heard this years ago. If you can show people something that they don't already know and it changes the way they think and the way they feel about what they do, then you are of value to them. So if what you've been doing is not working, then doing more of it is not going to make it any better. So how many of you have heard the story about the man driving across the country road? And he stops by a farmhouse to ask directions. And he walks up to the door, knocks on it, and there's a dog on the porch. And it's howling. It's howling in pain. And the farmer comes to the door, and the man about to ask directions says, "Sir, I came to ask directions off the farm, but I see your dog is howling in pain. Why is he doing that?" And the farmer looks at the man, and he looks at his dog, and he says, "Oh, my dog? He's sitting on a nail." And the man looks at the dog and looks at the farmer and says, "Well, why doesn't he get off it?" And the farmer looks back at the dog, looks at the man and says, "Well, I guess it just doesn't hurt enough." So we got started in a new business about 2.5 years ago, fully ready to take on some new responsibilities and take on some new skills. And what happened for us was we got on a webinar one day, and we heard some of these amazing leaders, and we heard what was going on for them and the success that they were experiencing. And they told us that there were 4 things, okay, that we had to do to become successful. Number 1, we had to learn new skills. As simple as that sounds, nobody really taught us that before. Number 2, we had to become better communicators, which means that we didn't just have to learn how to speak to other people, we had to learn how to communicate, first with ourselves. Because if you cannot communicate effectively with yourself, then you cannot effectively communicate with other people. We then were told that we had to be more inspired. And what did that mean to us? We knew we wanted to make a lot more money, but that didn't inspire us. And I remember when we first heard this, that we had to become inspired, it really made a huge difference because like I said before, the money is great, but it's what you can do with the money. And so we realized how much we wanted to give back. That was a huge reason for us to be successful. And then, of course, we had to learn to become better leaders because your success depends on the rise and the fall of your own leadership. And I will say this, you guys want to know one of the greatest days of my life in this industry? Here's what set me free. The day I stopped looking for things to be offended by. The day I stopped looking for things to be offended by is the day that my entire life changed. Because as soon as you let go of this feeling that you're being attacked or judged or somebody's looking down upon you, and you just realize that you can't please everybody, those are the days that you free yourself from that bondage and that fear that you're going to look bad. And here's the catch. Here's what's so funny about it. Everybody is so worried about what everybody else thinks of them. Meanwhile, nobody's thinking about you. They're all running around thinking about what you think of them. So it's a whole bunch of wasted energy for nothing. So the day you give up looking for things to be offended by is the day your life changes forever. Now I took on the free and the low-cost marketing. I started writing articles. I started doing press releases. I started making videos. I started a blog. I started, commenting in forums and going on to, big websites where there were hundreds of thousands of entrepreneurs. And I researched where I can go post articles and make comments and network on the internet because we wanted to figure out a way to drive traffic to our website. Now, in our very first month, we did really well. We actually had a $1,200 month, okay? But something pretty amazing happened. In our second month, our company announced a live event. They announced a live event, and we knew that we had to be there. So we took that $1,200 that we earned in our very first month, and we reinvested it back in the business. And sure enough, we flew out to Dallas, Texas. And we went there with our baby, and the three of us, we had a ticket to the event. And what we learned at that event was so powerful that when we got back from the event, okay, well, should I say, after the event, we were flying back to our home, and we had a conversation, and our initial goal for our business was to generate about $240,000. That's what we thought we could make when we first got started. But after coming out of the event and meeting the leaders and having the conversations and sitting down and really picking their brains and getting to rub, bump shoulders and rub elbows and really look them in the eye and just see that this was for real, and that this could be happening for us as well, we reevaluated our goal. We thought 240,000 might be a little bit too low. Maybe we'll shoot for a higher goal, about 300,000. We thought it was a little too low. And the reason why is because we knew that the biggest mistake that most people make in their business, it's not that they set their goals too high and they miss. It's that they set their goals too low and they hit. And that is a tragedy because when you don't stretch outside your comfort zone, guess what? You're in your failure zone. And so if your goals are just to make an extra, 200 or 300 or 400 or 500 a month or 1,000 a month or maybe 2,000 a month, if you're already making that kind of income, then you're not going to stretch yourself and do the things that it really takes to succeed. So on our flight back, we reevaluated our goal. We want to make $300,000. We implemented the plan. And in our first 3 days back from the event, we made $5,200. Not a bad first 3 days back, right? So we thought about it. We said, well, this is really cool. If we could make $5,200 in 3 days, what could we do if we implemented these strategies that we just learned using the belief that we just picked up from all these incredible people? And we did that for an entire year. So we changed our goal again. And what we did is we reevaluated all of our assets. We looked at all of the time we had. our skill sets, our computer skills, people skills, marketing skills, our capital, what we were willing to invest in our business and our budget. And we reevaluated, right? And I told you before, we went out and we re-implemented. And what we implemented was we guaranteed that we were going to learn these skills. We knew that we were going to become better communicators. We knew that we were going to be more inspired because we could already feel the difference. And as a result of being more inspired, we became more inspirational for other people. And we vowed and committed to becoming better leaders. And in our very first full year in that same business, we generated in income $690,000. Is that good or good? And the biggest takeaway that I got from that entire experience in the first 12 months is that when you do the right things, you get the right results. How many of you guys are ready to get some results already? See, I'm not up here because I need to motivate you. You guys are the motivated ones. Are you not? Right? You guys are motivated. You flew all the way here to Vegas. Some of you guys drove, maybe a few hours. I always was taught that the people who made the biggest sacrifices to come to the event usually have the biggest results after the event because they use the event as a launching pad to the next level. Are you guys in or in? So you got to learn the skills to pay the bills. And I have this whole philosophy called becoming a skillionaire to become a millionaire. Now, we've generated $1.7 million in the last 32 months, and that's great. But you know what the greatest thing about it is? Is that we now have the money to give back. So what are the right things? What actually gets you the results? Well, there are two things. There are two things that are going to make or break you. You guys ready? Your mindset and your skill set. And I cannot be any more simple than that. If I could break this entire business down to two things and two things only, it's this. It's your mindset and your skill set. And do you want to know what the two most important skill sets are that you will ever do in this business? Who wants to know? Talking to people and talking to more people. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay? Because that will ultimately be the door that opens up everything for you. Once you can learn more about people, it's like I said earlier, you learn more about people than your product, then you learned more about the real product that you market. And it all starts with the conversation. It all starts with having that connection with people. It all starts with you learning more about them than they learn about you. It all starts about you spending less time with more people, searching through the people to find those who are truly looking for what you have to offer. In or in? Okay? Now keep in mind, with the right mindset and the skill set, here's what happens. Not only do you become the person that it will take for you to become to succeed, but when you communicate with people, here's what's going to happen. You're going to be able to reduce the tension and increase the cooperation. Does that sound good to everybody? Okay? And not only that, your marketing is going to get so good, you're going to get to a point where the sales part becomes pretty much a piece of cake because very little is actually required. I'm going to say that again. When your marketing gets good, the sales part becomes a piece of cake because very little is actually required. How do you guys like that idea? Pretty strong? Okay. Your business is going to grow by way of marketing and attraction instead of just selling and promotion. And this is where people will find you simply because of the person that you've become. How many of you guys are into attraction marketing? Okay, attraction marketing. See, here's what really broke it open for us. When we understood that marketing is about being in the place that people are already looking for things, okay? When you can learn where the people are looking for things or whether we're looking to find something and you offer that exact thing that they're looking for, that is savvy marketing. And let me give you guys a little tip. Who finds who and who approaches who and who pursues who is a very, very important dynamic and variable in the equation for success. And when you learn to position yourself in front of a large market of people who are already looking for the exact thing that you're selling or marketing, that is what's going to put you in a position to succeed. Now, Remember, people buy from those that they perceive as leaders, and they buy from those who they perceive have tremendous value. And the number one difference between those who become successful and everyone else is simply their mindset and their skill set. You got to become a skillionaire to become a millionaire. Now, what I wanted to share with you before I start wrapping up is this. I said before that everything that you require to succeed is already in you. Okay, did I not say that? Okay, but I will say this. Although it's already in you, you have to learn to reinvent it. You need to learn to repackage it. You learn to really take your best assets. We call this the stupid human trick. How many of you have that one thing that you're so good at that if you would just do that one thing all day, every day, that you would reach whatever level of success you wanted and what you came here for? Okay, everybody have that one thing? How many of you remember when you played a video game when you were a kid? You know, if you played some kind of combat game, you would have this, one guy that you played all the time, and he would have this spinning back kick, and you would just sit there and press the button until you knocked out your opponent. Well, that's called the stupid human trick. And if you just did that one thing over and over and over and over again, not only will you develop that skill and become better at what you do, but you would set yourself free in a time frame that you'd actually be excited getting started for. So it's critical that you understand that. Your next level of success, no matter where you are right now, no matter where your income is, no matter how big your business is, your next level of success demands a new you.
For a free 10-day online recruiting bootcamp to dive deep into rejection-free sponsoring methods using the internet, click the link above or go directly to elitemarketingpro.com/go. I'll see you there.